Hey, good kind people, what is going on? You are checking out the RCWR show. Lee Sanders here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Special Friday night episode, dropping this going into the weekend of June 25th, 2021. Smackdown going off the air not that long ago. Hey, we saw our man. You think you know me? Edge, the rated R superstar, making his triumphant return. And what great timing. Me personally, I've always felt that Edge should have made his return in front of the fans. Just everything that's been going on with Edge so far, it just needed to be in front of the fans. So I think that the timing is so perfect that we've got Edge back feuding with Roman Reigns. I'm loving it. I can't wait to see. I mean, honestly, one thing that comes to my mind right now, and if you guys notice, and you've been very consistent checking out the shows here, at least on a week-to-week basis, you know that as far as Edge and Roman Reigns goes, this is something that I have been wanting to see for a good minute now, and I have been questioning in recent weeks, even a couple of months, what's going on with Edge. Remember that? I kept saying, hey, what's going on? Edge just magically disappeared. Now you don't have Daniel Bryan in the mix. Edge pretty much has a clear path straight to it. What's going on here? So how they pretty much laid it all out tonight and Edge's return and everything, magnifico. No complaints whatsoever. We'll definitely dive into that a lot more. We got a nice loaded up show for you guys. We're also going to be, besides SmackDown, keeping it nice and simple as far as what all we want to just really home in on and everything. And it's funny because originally this show was going to be a lot different. This show was pretty much just going to really be about SmackDown. Definitely open up the phone lines and trickle in some other pieces of some news to talk about. But the biggest piece of news that actually came from today is the amount of WWE releases that came about. So we're going to just really home in on SmackDown, and we're going to home in on these WWE releases. And I tell you what, I do have a poll that's up right now, youtube.com/the RCWR show. Click on the communities tab. There is a poll that's up right now. I've been doing a really good job not really posting that much stuff on our communities tab, but I want to know from you guys in regards to the future, what would you like to see happen with regards to a phone line? And I gave you guys some options. The first option, no phone line, happy just hearing Lee only and posting in the chat. Your second option, wasn't aware the chat line returned, I'll call in. Third option, heard about it recently, I'll call in eventually. Fourth option, yes, phone line, I'll call in every time I can. And the last option, if it's not toll free, I cannot call in, sadly. So I see there's a nice trickle of votes that's been coming in since we posted that about 2 days ago. If you did not cast your vote yet, kindly please sound off. Let your voices be heard. I'm going to have this poll remain open pretty much for another week. I'll let it go until next. I tell you what, I will let that poll go until I'll see where things are Wednesday. You know, if it moves, if it at least doubles what I'm seeing right now, then Wednesday I will call the poll done. Otherwise, I could definitely see this poll ending next Friday. But yes, please cast your vote. Let me know what's going on with that. And I got to tell you, the results that I'm seeing so far, I'm like, wow, interesting. Very, very interesting. So definitely look at those options. Think about it. What would you like as far as the structure of the show and all that goes? And definitely sound off. But where do we even begin with this show? Do we go on ahead? Do we talk about SmackDown and then get into these releases? Because if we get into these releases right now, then that's pretty much, you know, I won't say the entire show, but SmackDown is pretty much just, we're going to be in and out on SmackDown. So do we maybe go with the releases, or do we start with SmackDown? since we're going to be spending a big bulk of the time on the WWE releases, I'll give you guys enough time. For those of you that's kind of trickling in as we speak live right now, I'll let you guys maybe sound off a little bit. Those of you that are able to sound off, because I know some of you guys are either watching at work or got me in your ear, you can't really be seen on your phone or what have you and all that. So I'll buy you guys a little bit of time to maybe post a little something real quick. Otherwise, I'll just choose by default. And I think I know the direction that I want to go. Hey, before we dive any further, I definitely want to take this time out on a serious note. Two serious notes. Actually three when I really stop and think about it. Number one. So former police officer Derek Chauvin has been sentenced to 22 and a half years in prison for the murder of George Floyd. You know me, I don't really get too political. I don't really get too on the shows because, unfortunately, there's a couple of people that have some screws loose and they will just, you feel where I'm coming from, but I do pay attention to the age demographics of those that check out the shows on a regular basis, and pretty much we are tapping into that 18 to 54 age range. And I know there's definitely at the core, there's definitely a decent amount of you guys that maybe are not Patreon members and make your rounds checking out the Wrestling with the Topic shows that I do with the wifey. You may want to know, Lee, where do you stand? What do you think about the fact that Derek Chauvin got 22 and a half years for the murder of George Floyd, as his sentencing was earlier today? In a nutshell, without being too long-winded about this, I think 22 and a half years is freaking ridiculous. I think it is a joke. I think it is bullshit. Quite honestly, I sincerely do, because you just can't help but wonder, had this been not a police officer, just putting race to the side. I'm not going to even focus on race. Let's just focus on the fact that a human being, not a police officer, did exactly what Derek Chauvin did to George Floyd. I would like to believe that that sentence would be a lot longer. I would like to believe that sentence would be freaking, if not 50 to 60 years, maybe it would be life with the possibility of parole after serving a minimum of 30 years. Now, some people may look at that, and granted, you may have those that say, okay, that seems a little bit more fair. Some may hear what I just said and say, nah, dog, it needs to be a lot higher than that. All right, that's like a whole 30 minutes back and forth on that particular topic. I'm not going to even dive into that, but I think that we all can definitely be in agreement that 22 and a half years, especially when you hear the fact that this man may be able to get out a lot sooner because of good behavior. So this man may be able to get out of prison with good behavior after only serving possibly 10 years, somewhere between 7 to, I would be shocked if I heard 15, but I'm thinking at minimum probably 7 to 13 years with good behavior. This man could be out. I don't know about you guys. That does not sit well with me whatsoever. It really, really doesn't. I would like to know what exactly was the judge's thought process in coming to this decision. Because, when you really stop and think about that, and really think about that for a second, Derek Chauvin's 45 years old. So if he only has to serve about 10 years of that sentence, so basically he's going to be somewhere between 55, just about 60, or bullseye at 60, and he's pretty much going to be able to get out. Just marinate on that. That's all I got to say about that one. Now, something that is wrestling related and another non-wrestling related, but not as heavy as what I just talked about there with Derek Chauvin. Definitely thoughts and prayers. We're going wrestling related. Definitely thoughts and prayers to the family, colleagues, friends, fans, all around the industry. We had lost the beautiful, the lovely Melissa Coates. Melissa Coates is someone I've talked about off and on over the years. I didn't spam her name out like that. It wasn't a case where I was always bringing her up, but I would say for as long as I've been on the air, I honestly would not be surprised if that was a name I had mentioned maybe a handful of times. But I definitely was a fan of her work from the independents. She passed away this week at the age of 50. And I tell you what, I was moderating when the news had broke, and I was just left just as I sounded just now with the slight stuttering that was going on, just trying to find the right words to say and everything. I was just dumbfounded. I thought maybe somebody had pulled a stunt and somebody was just honestly doing a prank. I had a hard time believing that, and sure enough, it was actually legit and everything. So yeah, otherwise known as Super Genie. There's a couple of names that she's gone under, but I know a lot of people really will recall her from her work that she was doing with Sabu. Anytime Sabu was popping up for any other independent wrestling promotion, she usually was there. I know the last stint that Sabu had recently in Impact Wrestling, Melissa Coates was by his side and everything. He had a brief feud there with RVD from what I remember too and everything. But a beloved person on social media as far as the fans were concerned, because and you kept hearing the same constant theme about her. She was so warm, she was so sweet, very giving of her time. If you ever were to frequent a con or some type of wrestling event, 9 times out of 10, not only would Sabu be there, but she would be there as well. They were an item after all. And she always was just so, and I can tell you off and on over the years, I had a couple of very brief conversations with her. I remember there was maybe a couple of times I had tried to reach out to her and see if she'd be interested in appearing on the show and everything. And she was like, yeah, sure, no problem. Let me know whenever you're down. And for me, it was always kind of one of those when's the right opportunity to strike. It was all for me, it was all about timing. Because once I get somebody that's interested in appearing on the show, I don't normally just go, bam, let's do this. For me, it's all about timing. It's got to make perfect sense that would warrant an appearance and everything. I try to basically think in that type of form. And she was one that of all the people, because you got a lot of people that will utilize social media, especially if they're a personality of some type. They will just post their stuff. They won't really interact with their fan base or anything of that nature. But Melissa Coates was the total opposite. Melissa Coates was the total opposite. Trained by Killer Kowalski School in Massachusetts. She was also trained by Rick Bassman's UPW Academy. During her pro wrestling career, she wrestled in OVW. She also wrestled for Deep South Wrestling, for those of you that remember that. She appeared at WWE's 2005 Backlash pay-per-view. If you guys recall, she attempted to try to break out of the masterpiece Chris Masters trademark master lock, because it was a master lock challenge and everything. Chris Masters, if you follow the NWA product, he's now known as the masterpiece Chris Adonis and everything. Yeah, from there, really 2014, she started managing Sabu, and just everywhere you went, wherever there was Sabu, Melissa Coates was pretty much right there. She has had a rough couple of years. She had her leg amputated last year, and that was just whoa. I mean, when you hear that, one of the things that you're thinking about is, okay, what's going on there? Was there some serious blood clots that was maybe going on? Is it diabetes related? What's going on? And if you've never seen Melissa Coates before, you may be saying to yourself, damn, is she obese or something? What's going on? This was a woman kind of similar to Nicole Bass and China Joni Lauer. She took her health, Melissa Coates, that is, she took her health and fitness very seriously. This woman, for majority of her career, always had guns. I mean, she was always well built, had the shoulders, nice, good, strong legs, nice waist. Everything was just on point. So to hear that ultimately her leg had to be amputated, you just go, what the hell? But she had been having some health problems within recent years, and everything kind of really culminated in last year when her leg got amputated. I remember there was a GoFundMe campaign that was set up for her to try and cover her medical expenses and everything. And it seemed as though she was taking the news of losing her leg and all that as upbeat as humanly possible. I remember one of the last few interactions openly on social media that I actually had with her. I usually, with Melissa Coates, she was actually one of the few I would actually go out of my way on my Twitter timeline, and I would seek out to see what they were posting, because I don't know if you guys are kind of like that, but for me personally, there's a few individuals that just on a daily basis, I'll just go, hey, let me see what this person has posted today, and I'll literally go look for them. And one of the last interactions that I'm aware of that I had with Melissa Coates, she was commenting about possibly putting a gun on her amputated leg and pretty much walk around with that and everything. And I don't know, I think she did some type of a Photoshop job or whatever. And I remember seeing a picture of her with the leg and everything. And I commented, I said, oh man, that's badass. If you were to push that, that would be so freaking badass. And I think she responded right back something along the lines of like, you really think so? And I was like, yeah, frick yeah. And she was like, we'll see. It's kind of one of those type of deals. So she kind of seemed pretty upbeat and everything, but very beautiful. It's so weird when I think about Melissa Coates too, because when she was coming up and doing her thing on the indies, I mean, we got to remember at the time that she pretty much was wrestling on the independents, it was at a time where women's wrestling as a whole was still being looked upon as, I don't care for all that seriousness. It's just boobs and ass. I'm having my beer. I want to see some good boobs and ass. It was kind of one of those type of deals, right? So, you think about your, before the Shimmers and WSUs and Shines came along, pretty much think about your women extreme wrestling promotions, stuff around that kind of realm and everything, so it was kind of, but you saw her early on there and you just felt that, what, she's kind of got something that's there, she just might be the one that can kind of break that ceiling a little bit. We'll have to wait and see. But for whatever respected reason, her career as a singles performer, it never really got to that height that many of us, particularly that followed her work, it never really got to that height that we thought it was going to go to. And it just seemed as though after a while, she said to herself, okay, you know what? My career may not exactly be going in the trajectory I had thought, but hell, look at what's going on with my man Sabu. And she pretty much had poured all of her creativity, all of her energy and everything into helping Sabu. So definitely, once again, thoughts, prayers, condolences to the friends, family, colleagues, definitely fellow fans as well for Melissa Coates. It was awesome seeing the amount of tributes that had came in. I know Impact Wrestling had said a little something But yeah, 50 years of age, gone way too soon. But I tell you what, if there is a utopia and just pure freaking paradise, hopefully she's there. And as far as all the pain and suffering and the health problems that she's been dealing with for these past couple of years now, hopefully, if there is that utopia, that paradise, she's there, not in any more pain whatsoever. Godspeed, Melissa Coates. And last but not least, I didn't get a chance to talk about this one from last week. Not as lengthy as what I was just commenting on with regards to Melissa Coates, but definitely want to send thoughts, prayers, condolences to the Frank Boner family. Frank Boner, and I know my older listeners are going to recognize this. They already recognize the name, but some are probably trying to put the face to it. Frank Boner, who basically was Herb, one of my favorite TV shows from back in the 70s, WKRP in Cincinnati. He passed away last week, passed away at the age of 79. 79, that is a good, long, fruitful life. He even had directed a couple of episodes of WKRP in Cincinnati. He also directed a few episodes of Saved by the Bell. Believe it or not, Saved by the Bell. He had also directed. I mean, as an actor, what TV show did he not touch during the 70s? Nancy, Emergency, Cannon, Mannix, Man from Atlantis, The Love Boat, going into the 80s, Fantasy Island, Give Me a Break, Newhart, Night Court, Punky Brewster, the new WKRP in Cincinnati. And as a director, as I mentioned just a few seconds ago, he directed a couple episodes of WKRP in Cincinnati. He also directed Family Ties, a couple episodes of Head of the Class, Who's the Boss, Harry and the Hendersons, the new WKRP. So Saved by the Bell. I can't think of which Saved by the Bell it was. I don't know if it was the original or if it was Saved by the Bell, the new class, but a pretty good resume as an actor and as a director as well. As far as how he passed away, nothing is really known right now. I mean, I believe it was from complications of dementia. I believe it was from complications of dementia. So, you on the one hand, you say, okay, 79 years old, that's a nice, long, fruitful life. But then when you hear dementia, Lewy body dementia was attached to how he passed, you just can't help but go, man, if there's just one fucked up way to go out with that form of dementia, just oof. You feel where I'm coming from. So same thing for him. If there's a utopia, if there's a paradise, hopefully he's there and no longer going through what he was going through these final few years of his life. Hopefully you would just like to believe that his family and friends did their very best to make his last few minutes on this earth, these final moments as most comfortable as possible for him and everything. But could you just imagine, and I was kind of briefly having this discussion with DT last week, but I kind of really got the ball going when I was mentioning it, but could you just imagine in 2021 the Herb character from WKRP doing what he's doing in this society? I mean, when you think about the whole Me Too movement and everything, that Herb character, that Herb Turtle character, I don't think would even make it 2 episodes out the gate. I just don't, because remember the Herb character. I mean, Herb was one of those characters on WKRP in Cincinnati. If he felt there was an opportunity to get next to a pretty hot woman, He might be able to get them digits, take her out for dinner, and one thing leads into another. He was all on it. I mean, he was so freaking aggressive on that show. You thought Captain Kirk was bad on the original Star Trek series. You know, because Captain Kirk, he pretty much would fuck with anything that moved. It didn't matter if it was green, purple, 8 arms, long as it had a pretty face, tiny waist. Captain Kirk was all on that joint, yo. But Herb was kind of a tier down from that level. And I can just remember the numerous times that Herb had this infatuation with Lonnie Anderson's character. Remember Lonnie Anderson on WKRP, how she was the secretary and all that, and Herb just used to try very hard macking. I mean, it was downright, I mean, in today's term, it would be sexual harassment. No means no. So yeah, that character, I think if that character were to had come out today, if WKRP the original would have come out today, and you got that Herb that's running around, yeah, I can just see petitions and everything left and right. You know, that's just how it is. You know, but when you really kind of stop and think about it, the Herb Tarlek character for me, it seemed as though my interpretation, at least my interpretation of this guy, it was more so of a guy that was so far removed from the times. He was trying to do everything he could to try and be relevant, to try and be hip with the current culture that was going around. And he thought that from the type of clothes that he was wearing, that maybe, okay, this is how I can impress people. This is how I can look flashy. This is how I can look like I'm important. When on the contrary, he looked like a freaking used car salesman. He looked like some type of a freaking pawnbroker, you know, hack or whatever. And then it also kind of came off to me as though he did have some type of insecurities, and the way that he would deal with these insecurities was building up this facade of, I'm a big shot, I'm so important, you know, I'm this, I'm that. And at least that was kind of, I don't know how you all's interpretation of Herb was, but that was kind of my interpretation of him. I mean, when you really got down to the heart of the matter, you stripped away the loud clothing and everything. It wasn't as loud as the late, oh God, I can't think of his name right now. NBA, TNT, the color commentator that passed away from cancer a couple of years ago. White guy. Used to always wear the flashy, crazy ass suits. That man had taste. His shit was loud, but he had taste. I mean, it was like Seth Rollins loud. His name will come to me later on, but you guys that follow basketball know exactly the name I'm talking about. But, you know, when you stripped all that stuff away from Herb, I mean, he really was just this plain old, boring, tasteless sales manager for WKRP, basically. You know, he just was a regular nerd, a regular boring guy when it was all said and done. So definitely rest in peace to him. And once again, thoughts, prayers, condolences to the family, friends, colleagues of Mr. Frank Boner. Yeah, that character would not fly in 2021 for sure. So I gave you guys a little bit of an opportunity to maybe sound off about where you guys want to go. And I don't see any comments in the chat as of right now. I asked you guys a few minutes ago. That's kind of why I continue to go on and on. I was trying to give you guys a little bit of time to sound off if you wanted me to get into Smackdown first, or if you wanted me to get into the WWE releases, and we'll get into Smackdown later. But since you guys did not put a comment in the chat room, Craig Sager, thank you, Steven. Yes, it was Craig Sager. I don't know why, but I was drawing a blank there. Craig Sager. Yes, okay, so it's my pick. Since you guys that are watching live did not in the chat let me know what you want me to talk about first, my decision. I'm going to go with Smackdown. And we could pretty much just be, because I mean, with regards to SmackDown tonight, SmackDown was really just, a couple of little spots here and there that was cool, but really the main selling sticking point, it was all about Edge. That's pretty much what it was all about in a nutshell. So let's go ahead and let's talk briefly about SmackDown here. I'm only going to go over the points of interest that had really caught my eye and all that. If there's anything that I'm kind of missing afterwards, you want me to double down on, feel free to comment and let me know. So we get a recap of what all went down on the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view and the main event match between Roman Reigns taking on Rey Mysterio. And of course, we got that conflict that's going on with the Usos there. Remember Jey Uso, he pretty much dipped out like I'm gone, yo. So now Jimmy is the one. They've pretty much done the reversal here. They've pretty much swapped places and all that. So we get a nice little video package setting everything up. Then we go live backstage where we see Roman Reigns. Paul Heyman is, sucking up to him as always and everything. Jimmy enters the scene. Roman wants to know what's going on with Jey. Jimmy lets him know, hey, I have tried since the pay-per-view getting in contact with Jey. And I just kept hitting him up. It took me a minute, but I finally did hear from him. And he, honestly, I'm going to give it to you right between the eyes. Oops, he's done. He don't want nothing to do with us. So that pissed off Roman Reigns. And Jimmy's pretty much saying to Roman, look, it's all good because I'm here. I got your back. Whatever you need, I got you covered. So Roman looks at that and takes that as a challenge, saying, okay, so you really are trying to be my right-hand man. You're trying to do what Jey was able to do. You really think that you're able to step into that role. And Jimmy is just, I don't understand. What's the problem here? I don't quite understand. And Roman gives it to him right between the eyes and says to him, no, I need you to be main event Jimmy Uso. I need you to reach the level that your brother was able to reach. So if you want to prove to me that you got what it takes to be aligned with me and you can pretty much pick up the mantle from where your brother was doing it and succeed further, then you're going to have to prove it to me. So the challenge ultimately that Jimmy Uso would have tonight would come from Paul Heyman, because Paul actually called up with Jimmy a little bit later on into the show. Jimmy was trying to understand exactly what did he need to do exactly to prove himself to Roman. Heyman saying simple, go out, win a match. Just win one match. Jimmy's like, one match? Paul's like, one match. Okay, bet. But Paul lets him know that if he was not able to win the match that he would set up for Jimmy tonight, forget about it. So Jimmy agreed to do that one match. The one match that Jimmy would have would be against Dolph Ziggler. Decent little matchup. I would say those guys probably win at it maybe about 7 minutes. I'd be shocked if it was 10 minutes. Jimmy Uso picking up the dub. Afterwards, going backstage to the gorilla position, coming up to Roman and Heyman, wondering if that was good enough, what they saw based on that, if that was good enough. Roman did not give Jimmy any dabs. He didn't acknowledge him. He just pretty much really looked past him and went out to the main stage because it was his time to address the status of his championship reign. Heyman, on the other hand, did stay back, said to Jimmy, kind of sarcastically, yeah, you did all right. We see you, but you were just kind of left to the impression that, honestly, what's currently happening with Jimmy Uso, they're just getting started. And I honestly would not be surprised if it was a case where the very next week on SmackDown, Jimmy Uso comes up to Roman and freaking Heyman. I personally, I would love to see some type of a segment where Roman Reigns just has this nice big food spread, and he's just digging in. He's getting his veggies on. He's getting his fruit on. You know, he's getting his hydrated water on. I would just love to see Roman doing all of that. And I would love to see Paul Heyman just holding on to the championship, just feverishly looking over the shoulders of Roman Reigns as he's eating. And I could just picture Paulie just kind of salivating there, where Roman finally just kind of gets this disgusted, irritated vibe and kind of looks over his shoulder and just says, "Would you sit down already and make yourself a plate?" And Paulie just, "Oh, I never thought you graced me with such an opportunity, Tribal Chief." I just see something like that coming about. Paulie grabs a seat. Jimmy comes in. He's thinking he's going to be able to sit right there at the table. Remember? Head of the table, right? He eats first, then everybody else gets there. I can just see some type of a scenario like that, and essentially, or something along those lines, where essentially it's told to Jimmy, "Oh, no. We're just getting started. What you did last week, that was nice and all that, but I mean, come on. That's Dolph Ziggler after all. Surely you don't think just by defeating Dolph Ziggler that pretty much is going to get you in, right? Nah. We need to see you do a lot more than what you did from last week." So how does Jimmy maybe kind of, honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if you did a scenario where Jimmy Uso is told, "Go do something that's wow. Go do something that's shocking. Go do something that will impress your tribal chief." I could see Jimmy trying to challenge Edge. I could honestly see that. I don't know if it would be first in the form of a beatdown, and then Jimmy Uso issues a challenge to face Edge one-on-one. I don't know if you do something along those lines, and it plays out on that same episode, or if you have Jimmy pretty much call out Edge by the end of the episode to a match on Smackdown for next week. So not this week, but 2 weeks later. So kind of have that in the back of your mind. There's kind of a couple of interesting turns that we can go with that. So I like what's going on here. I think this is that period now where in storyline we're essentially toughening up Jimmy Uso, so to speak. And the question becomes, how much can Jimmy Uso take? How much is he willing to endure to prove himself as being the new right-hand man of Roman Reigns? Or when it counts the most, is Jimmy going to crack under pressure? So kind of have that going in the back of your mind. Some other key points from SmackDown tonight. We opened up after that little beginning there with Roman, Jimmy, and Heyman and all that. I pretty much just went right. We got a little bit more we could talk about with regards to the main event, because we can definitely talk about Edge a little bit more. But following up after that, Bianca Belair, she came out to the ring, and she pretty much was reminding us about what all had went down at the pay-per-view and everything. She points out that tonight she's looking forward to whipping Bayley's ass all throughout the arena, because it's pretty much a rematch yet again, but with a twist, because it's an intergender tag team matchup as Bianca Belair, and you want to talk about an odd pairing too. Bianca Belair teams up with Seth Rollins to take on, Bianca Belair teams up with Cesaro to take on the team of Seth Rollins and I'm drawing a blank. Seth Rollins and Bayley. There we go. Seth Rollins and Bayley. So not bad for a guy that just mostly has the bullet notes in here. It's all in the head right here. So we're doing pretty good so far, I would have to say. So there's a nice little back and forth that was going on between Bayley and Bianca once Bayley came out. Little cat brawl. Cesaro coming out, and pretty much everybody's just going at it. Commercial break, you come on back, you get your mixed intergender tag team match. Bianca Belair, Cesaro taking on Seth Rollins, Bayley. Official results: Seth Rollins and Bayley picking up the dub. Honestly, I felt it was a bit of a average match, kind of somewhat spotty as well. Um, yeah, just wasn't really good. It wasn't really good, which is kind of because the match that Bailey and Bianca Belair had at the pay per view, I thought for the most part it was good. I really appreciated the fact that Bailey did a phenomenal job in really putting Bianca over and all that. But this, we honestly could have done without this match. Honestly, we could have done without this match. We could have done without the Cesaro and Rollins element if maybe we were to just go into a rematch just between these two girls. I actually would have been okay with it, but it's all good. It's all good. All right. A little bit later on into the show, Shinsuke Nakamura, we see him being crowned the king. Of course, we got to get that video package showing us what all had went down between Corbin and Nakamura for last week. So Nakamura is pretty much crowned with the championship. Meanwhile, backstage, Corbin is interviewed by Kayla. She calls him king, but then cuts herself and says Baron Corbin. Baron chimes in and says that, he lost more than his crown. He lost his investments, most of his life savings, and asks, what's the point of all of this? So I'm just kind of wondering here. I don't know about you guys, but when I heard Baron Corbin say all this, I'm kind of going, wait a minute. How did one particular match over a crown result to him losing his savings and all of this other shit and losing sponsor? Did he lose sponsors? Is that what he's talking about as far as losing money? What exactly is going on here? So it definitely had me raise an eyebrow here, and I'm kind of wondering now, okay, so what exactly did Baron lose here? Exactly, right? Because if it was a case where, hey, he was King Corbin because he had won the King of the Ring tournament, and as a result of that gave him a lot of name recognition. It put him in a really good position to get the sponsorship opportunities. Okay, I could totally understand that. But we're talking about investments and most of his life savings, all from losing a match for a crown. So I need to know a little bit more about what exactly is going on here with Baron Corbin, because it almost kind of seems as if Baron Corbin has not been frugal with his money, and that everything that's been happening, and look, anybody that follows Baron Corbin, you guys know he loves showing off his hot rides and all kinds of cool stuff. So if we're really going to embark on this new chapter with Baron Corbin, then we got to make sure that on social media, it pretty much reflects what we're seeing on TV as well. And if that means ultimately Baron Corbin needs to dial it back dramatically on what he posts on social media, then so be it. So, I'm very, very curious here. What happened? Does Baron Corbin, are we in a position where WWE is eventually setting us up for some type of a new personality, a new entourage or whatever that maybe is going to come for Baron Corbin's ass because of everything that was tied to him being King Corbin? And pretty much that's how the investments, life savings, what I'm curious. And then on the other hand, I can't help but also think to myself, okay, Chad Gable and everything that he's been doing so far with freaking, oh god, I'm drawing a blank on his name. That's what happens when you don't watch Smackdown on a regular freaking basis. Tucker and Otis is who I'm thinking about. So maybe does Baron Corbin eventually cross paths with Chad Gable and Otis, and Chad Gable pretty much, hey, look, I know you're in a funk right now. I know that you're having some financial problems. Happens to the best of us. But look, man, don't knock it, but look at what I've been able to do for Otis so far in his career. You know, he pretty much was at a low point in his career. Women problems, just for starters, but look at where he is now. I mean, he's a freaking beast. If you would allow me, I can help you really tap into your truest potential and really bring it out. Okay, so is maybe Chad Gable in the cards there for Baron Corbin? Something to kind of marinate on going into next coming weeks. But that one, I'm very curious. I'm very curious what's going on there with that. So Seth Rollins catches up with Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville, and he makes a claim for himself to be the one to challenge for Roman Reigns' Universal title. He wants to be the next challenger for it. He goes over his list of accomplishments. Sonya Deville, Adam Pearce, they pretty much tell him they're going to take that into advisement, but for now, everything is still up in the air. Next matchup, a Money in the Bank qualifying match. Big E taking on Apollo Crews. Commander Aziz was at ringside. Big E picking up the dub. Great chemistry as always between Big E and Apollo Crews. Showed it off here yet again. Good shit. Caleb backstage interview with Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn feels very vindicated by winning that match against Kevin Owens on Sunday. He is the messenger of the cosmic machine that is designed to deliver justice. Kayla, unfortunately, has some bad news for him as she says to him that next week he will be going one-on-one against Kevin Owens. And this is going to be in a Money in the Bank qualifier match. You heard me right, a Money in the Bank qualifier match. Sami Zayn was pretty livid when he heard that. He couldn't believe he was going to have to face Kevin Owens again because, like, he's already been vindicated. What the hell? Why does he have to go through this all over again? He tries to catch up with Adam Pearce backstage, try to understand the mindset, see if he can get it reversed, but it's set in stone. And he told Adam Pearce to be very careful because karma has a way of coming back. So I just couldn't help it when I heard that. Is Sami Zayn getting ready to bring back Awesome Kong? Like that kind of karma? That would be kind of badass, wouldn't it? So continuing development right there. Carmella faced Liv Morgan. It sucked that these two had to work with each other by default. No storyline. I mean, this was pretty much like a freaking instant Acme feud, so to speak. Really no chemistry between these girls whatsoever. But, you know, could it have been worse? Yes, it could have been worse and everything. But, yeah, it is what it is. Let's see. We already went over Jimmy Uso defeating Dolph Ziggler. And then, yeah, so pretty much afterwards, it was all about Roman Reigns. We mentioned earlier how Roman Reigns and Jimmy talked backstage already. Roman decided he was going to come out with Paul Heyman, pretty much address his current status as the champion, you know, his championship address, his little State of the Union. And he pretty much just went out there talking about how he's pretty much beaten everybody that's been put before his path. He talked about how he took out Daniel Bryan, pretty much sent him packing. He slayed the monster among men, Braun Strowman. It was nice hearing that little name drop of Roman there. Way he just destroyed and humbled the hell out of Rey Mysterio. You know, list just pretty much goes on and everything. And when he got to the point where he said, you know, look, there's nobody left. I've pretty much destroyed all the competition that's out there. You hear the music of Edge coming out. Beard got a little thicker and everything. and both men just pretty much taking off their jackets at the same time, ready to brawl at each other. And it was badass. Nice action inside the ring, nice action outside of the ring. You get a nice little Superman punch to Edge. Good shit there, man. Good fucking shit there. Good fucking shit. I love this. I love this. I loved how this pretty much had ended with Edge posing and Roman outside of the ring and everything, and they mean mugging each other to pretty much end the episode. I love this. This you couldn't ask for a better way to have SmackDown go off the air. And you just look at the timing of this too. I mean, look, we knew, let's be honest with ourselves, with about less than 3 weeks going into the return of WWE live events, we always knew that WWE was going to hold back a bit as it got closer and closer and closer. And so to pretty much kick things off with Edge and all that. Now, look, if you were to just pick my brain for a minute and say, Lee, what do you think is going to be going down now that Edge is back? Do you see a scenario coming about where Roman Reigns, Edge gets the title off of Roman? I don't see it happening. I still feel in my heart of hearts that Big E will be the one to challenge Roman Reigns for the championship. I truly believe it's going to be Big E. If it's not going to be Big E challenging Roman Reigns for the championship by SummerSlam, then maybe by Survivor Series is going to be Big E, Roman Reigns, Big E cashes in. Because I'm just looking at the potential, okay, who can be that new Money in the Bank guy? Who could it possibly be? And two names that really stand out to me right now, Riddle and Big E. Those are the two that really stand out to me the most. I mean, we got to see how the rest of this Money in the Bank match for the men's side is going to shape up. But that's honestly how I'm kind of looking at how it's most likely gonna shape up. But then also at the same time, another cool element that you got to put into the mix as well. You know, and it's kind of interesting too when I really stop and think about it, because it doesn't seem like we're gonna be going in that direction. Somebody had posed a couple of folks had posed a really cool idea. Well, what if one of the Usos were to win the Money in the Bank briefcase? That would be a very interesting dynamic there, would it not? And it would, but just kind of looking at the way things are shaping up right now, I think it's safe to say WWE isn't thinking along those lines. It doesn't appear as though one of the Usos is going to be involved in Money in the Bank. Although, look, anything can happen. Anything can happen. Remember what I said earlier. You could have Jimmy Uso try to, okay, what do I got to do to, and once again, he's met with scrutiny. Maybe he challenges Edge, or maybe he gets in the face of Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville and says, yo, put me in Money in the Bank. Something to think about. Something to definitely think about there. But so episode of SmackDown. I mean, it pretty much came and went. For me personally, what was the main highlight of the night? Definitely seeing Edge return. I would also have to go with, for what it was worth, Jimmy and Ziggler going at it for what it was worth. And honorable mention, I'd give it up to Big E and Apollo Crews. But I mean, really, just a slightly below average episode, get or take. It wasn't a must see. If you didn't watch it because you were preoccupied with other stuff, you were good. You were good. You didn't miss anything. You'll do all right just catching the highlights on Hulu, YouTube, or whatever. So that was SmackDown. Yeah, in a nutshell. Anything as far as SmackDown you guys kind of felt I maybe overlooked, want me to spend a couple of more minutes on, feel free to sound off in the comments. Otherwise, I say that's it for SmackDown. And hey, yo, let me holler at you for a minute. If you guys been enjoying the show so far, do me a huge favor, especially since it doesn't cost you a thing. Make sure you hit that like. Helps me out tremendously, man. It pretty much pushes out the content to the YouTube algorithm team, and it really helps newer fans be able to discover the channel and the content. Really, I can't stress that enough. It would mean so much. We've been kind of staggering. Around 11,700 subscribers on YouTube. I think it's like 11,800 subscribers on YouTube. I want to see that. I want to see that climb. I want to see if we can get 12,000 subs by the end of this year. I think that's very, very realistic. So definitely hit the like, subscribe, make sure you click all bell notifications. I see you guys been doing a better job selecting all bell notifications too, by the way. Keep up the great work with that, because I get so many people from time to time. Let me take a quick sip of my water here. I get so many people from time to time that'll say, I didn't even know you were live. I didn't even know you did a show. And it's, well, is your notifications on? Like make sure your notifications is on. So make sure you do that. Make sure you do that. All right, so we're definitely going to get into these WWE releases next. Hey, shout out to my Patreon familia, by the way, patreon.com/RCWR show. That's where you can check out bonus audio, video content. It's been really, really weird for me to get back into the groove of things since I came back to the shows, essentially. What was that? Like, I came back to the shows, not this past week, but the week prior. So, because I've been at this now for over a week with the returns of the shows and all that. It's been weird being back on the saddle again. I got to tell you, just having the 2 weeks off, I'm dealing with serious jet lag, as is the wifey. The wifey is dealing with it. It really made us realize, damn, because that was really the first time we ever, as long as we had been in a relationship and then going into the wedding, that was truly the first time that we ever really, okay, we're going on vacation. All the other times over the years, we've just been work, not taking vacations, enjoying our little 2-3 days off here and there, because that's either how our schedule got set up, or it was a holiday weekend, or some day off or whatever. So now we're kind of we're going through that withdrawal. It's kind of like, when we gonna go out again? Kind of one of those deals. By the way, can I say something on a serious note? I kept meaning to bring this up, but I don't know how, guys. I seriously, I don't know how. Maybe it was because of some of that jet lag or whatever, getting back into the groove of things. But if you guys recall on social media, I had shared a picture and a comment in the wee hours of the night, like it's late Saturday night going into Sunday morning. This was a couple of weeks ago. And it was while I was still on my honeymoon / vacation. And I had told you guys how I had to drive myself and Tams to urgent care facility because she had been experiencing sharp pains, damn near about to pass out at one point. She was having difficulty sleeping. She could not stomach food down. Seemed as though she was getting ready to puke a couple of times. Ginger ale, kind of helped, because as far as I know, she did not puke. And so it was crazy because we had went to this new restaurant that was around the corner from the hotel that we were staying at. And I asked her, I said, what are you going to eat? She said, no, I'm not hungry. I'm good. I'm like, wait, what? Because 1 minute she seemed as though she could go for a bite. And she said, yeah, I could go for a bite. And then now that we're at the place, she doesn't want to eat anything. And so, we leave from there. We go get some beer and we go back to the room. And I'm just kicking back. I'm watching the games. I'm also doing some studying for my classes. And, I'm just drinking. I probably had like about maybe half a bottle of beer, basically. And the next thing I know, that's finally she comes clean with me. At this time, it's like about, God, probably like about 2 hours had passed once we got back, and she started telling me what was going on with her. And I told her, I said, okay, we need to see if we can get you seen by a doctor ASAP. Like, get on the phone, see what's up. Sadly, her primary care physician did not work, doesn't work on the weekend. So you're going, well, that fucking sucks. So what else is new? And they're trying to hit her up with a damn virtual appointment for Tuesday. Here we are, Saturday going into Sunday. I'm hearing this shit. I'm going, this woman ain't gonna make it to no goddamn Tuesday, because her condition started getting worse. So I tell her, I said, okay, I'm like, you lay down, let me get on the phone here, let me see what I can come up with. And I pretty much, I didn't feel tipsy, luckily. I promise you, if I would have started working on the second bottle of beer, I definitely would have been toasted. But I pretty much drove us to a urgent care facility that was under her, what's the right word? That was under her plan, right? So it wasn't like she was going to come out of pocket. I must have been there for like about 3 fucking hours. We both were there. We were there for like 3 hours. They did blood work. They were doing x-rays. I mean, they did the whole 9 yards. And when it was all said and done, they were thinking that she possibly had a oh God, well, not a UTI, not a urinary tract infection, but they were thinking she was having maybe a case of kidney stones. And sadly, there was really no way, because with all the symptoms that she had provided and everything, because probably the only thing that that was not established, I mean, she did not have a fever. There was no blood in her urine. There was no difficulty in urination or anything. There wasn't any urinary retention, none of that. But they're thinking that she probably, just given what she said to them, they're thinking she probably had a case of the kidney stones. But everything came back negative. But that was really scary. I got to tell you, it was really, really scary. And it just had me going, what the hell is going on here? So, but she's good. I know there were a lot of you guys that had, either left a comment or private messaged me. She's been doing a lot better. I'm making sure she's been drinking a lot more water, cranberry juice and all that. She seems to be pretty good so far. So I meant to always say thank you to those of you, because I know at the time I posted that it was like late in the morning, and I didn't finally get in. Well, we both didn't. We didn't finally get in from urgent care until about, my God, at least almost, I think it was 4:30 in the morning, and our checkout was at 11. So by the time we got in, we both were wired until about maybe 5 in the morning and everything. Yeah, it was one of those kind of nights, I tell you. It was one of those kind of nights. You guys ready to get into these WWE releases? I say, let's go ahead. Let's go there, man. Wow. Is all I have to say. A lot of releases came about today that was nothing earth shattering, nothing that is, but just the volume of it. I do have to say there's a couple in here that just has me go, okay, that's a little bit perplexing. I didn't quite see that coming. But yeah, a lot of releases that came today. Now, I did my best to compile everything right before we went live on the air. I spent about an hour just making sure I was up to date. So if there's any names I am missing, I need you guys, while we're still live, to give me the most up-to-date, real-time information, okay? So let's go ahead and let's begin, all right? So kicking things off, Everrise. The team of Everrise was let go earlier today by WWE. Everrise, formerly known as 3.0, Scott Parker, and Shane Matthews, otherwise known as Chase Parker and Matt Martell. They wrestled for Shakira, IWS, CZW, IWA, MS, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. They've pretty much been involved in the wrestling industry since 2004. They actually were signed in WWE back in 2016. If you remember, they were part of 40 wrestlers that were invited to try out at the WWE Performance Center. And then in 2019, officially, they became newly signed recruits. They entered the 2021 Dusty Tag Team Classics. They got ultimately eliminated by GYV, the Grizzled Young Veterans. Bounced around on 205, feuding with Oni Lorcan, Danny Burch, Leon Ruff, Adrian Alanis. And yeah, just kind of one of those, within recent memory, we've pretty much seen them on these little backstage skits and all that on NXT. And, they've been trying to promote their little Ever Rise podcasts. And, it was funny because I was saying to folks the other day, I said, they remind me so much like Edge and Christian. And some people were like, whoa, Lee, the fuck are you smoking, dog? Some good shit. And like, no. And I had to make sure I let them know, like, I'm not talking about in-ring wise. I'm just saying as far as their little silly antics, their shenanigans and all that, they kind of remind me of Edge and Christian with their little corniness, playfulness, their little wittiness, back and forth banter and everything. That's what they kind of reminded me of. And then once I really had laid it out to people were, okay, yeah, I totally see that. Yeah, I totally see that. So I gotta say, I'm a little bit surprised over this release. I really, really am. But, I mean, you heard all of those promotions that I just mentioned where these guys were working. I don't feel that these guys are just gonna disappear like the Ascension and a couple of other tag teams. Yeah, I feel as though these guys are definitely going to continue to stay involved in the wrestling business without a shadow of doubt. Look, one of the last times we actually saw Ever Rise in action on this past week's NXT. They lost to Hit Rose, Top Dollar, and Ashanti Adonis, if you guys recall. But they've pretty much, Ever Rise that is, they pretty much regularly, frequently, were pretty much on NXT and 205 Live. So, but lately they've been doing the whole backstage stuff on NXT. So I find that to be a little bit perplexing. I would like to know the mindset of Nick Khan, who pretty much is the new head guy in charge of, okay, whatever you got to do as far as releasing whoever, do what you got to do. We're expecting results. I mean, he's pretty much trimming the fat where he sees it's necessary. A little bit surprised. I got to tell you, of the releases, this one, I'm a bit surprised. I know a lot of people that had looked at this tag team, they kept going with the comparisons of the Young Bucks, calling them Young Bucks ripoff, Young Bucks light. I honestly did not see any of that with these guys. I think that's an unfair comparison because you could honestly make an argument that in some elements, in some cases, that Young Bucks are better than Ever Rise in these areas, and then you could make an argument that Ever Rise is actually better than Young Bucks in these areas. But to basically call them Young Bucks, I didn't see any of that. I think that was honestly an unfair comparison. But nobody should feel, of all the releases, of course, you shouldn't feel sorry for any of these people that were released because they all should be able to really bounce back, especially during this time right now where okay, this pandemic is pretty much in the rearview mirror. We're starting to get back out there. We're starting to go on tour. We're starting to visit cities and all that. Okay, this is that time now where the wrestling industry as a whole is now together moving forward. So, I don't think these guys are done. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we were to see them ultimately in Impact Wrestling. Um, I personally wouldn't even mind seeing them do a little something for. Now, see, I could definitely see them in AEW. I could definitely see, but I like as far as fitting that AEW glove, I think they would fit that pretty good, especially for the new Rampage, the Dark, the Elevation shows. I think they would slide in, pretty well and everything. They'd be pretty good over there. But maybe ROH, maybe MLW. I could definitely see them doing some stuff over there. They'd be pretty good. My personal pick though, like my number one go to, I wouldn't mind seeing them do some stuff in Impact. Wouldn't mind seeing them do some stuff in Impact. But yeah, very interesting release right there. Our next release that went down today, this one just, wow. Tony Nese. Tony Nese released by the WWE earlier today. Ay, ay, ay. I mean, what a great freaking look on this guy, too, by the way. Wrestled in the Northeast, mainly for promotions such as Five Borough Wrestling, FWE, the New York Wrestling, how was it, Connection, I think, NYWC, Pro Wrestling Syndicate. He's pretty much been with WWE since 2016. And I gotta say, when I look back on folks that were the Cruiserweight Champion, when I look back on Enzo, when I look back on Austin Aries, when I look back on Drew Gulak, and particularly when I look back on Tony Nese, when he was the Cruiserweight Champion, I thought he had a pretty decent run as the champion. Remember that infamous WrestleMania 35 where Tony Nese became the Cruiserweight Champion after defeating Murphy? And then from there, they had a really great rematch. He went on the feud with Drew Gulak. Eventually, there was that triple threat match between he, Gulak, and Akira Tozawa for the Cruiserweight Championship. Gulak eventually won the title, and that pretty much had put an end to his 70-day reign as champion. So that for me was just kind of, good look. I could definitely make an argument that early on in Tony Nese's WWE career, personality-wise, it was pretty flat, but he started really piecing it together as far as I was concerned. He mainly was on 205. He was heavily featured on there. One of the last things that he did, you got to go back to late 2020. He was aligned with Arya Davari. That's another name that we got to get into later. And they pretty much were calling themselves the 205 Live OGs. And for the first half of 2021, they were feuding with August Gray, Kurt Stallion, Akman Nero. But yeah, Tony Nese was mainly on 205 Live. So that release right there, that one definitely kind of left me scratching my head a little bit. I'm not really, like I said, that guy, great fucking look, great physique, phenomenal in the ring. If there was one match, because I know a lot of people don't watch 205 Live, myself being one of those people, I gotta stay consistent. After Austin Aries, Drew Gulak, I would have to say, and not for nothing, I did watch a little bit when Tony Nese was champion, but pretty much after that, after those phases, I pretty much was done with 205 Live altogether. But one thing I want to say about Tony Nese, if anybody has never checked out any of his stuff while he was in the WWE, go out of your way and look up the match he did with Noam Dar. It was a no DQ match. That was, besides what he did at WrestleMania 35 with Buddy Murphy, man, those two, for me, my most favorite highlight moments of Tony Nese's career. And that can pretty much tell you all you need to know about Tony Nese, and will definitely have you walk away going, well, this kind of makes no sense right here. Why did they release this guy? Because you could see the potential in this guy. This was honestly a guy that, okay, yeah, I can see him wrestling a Kofi Kingston. I can see him wrestling a Daniel Bryan. I can see him taking on and Xavier Woods. I can see him going at it with AJ Styles. I can see him going at it even with Matt Riddle, or yeah, man, let me see what this guy can do against Ricochet. So very nerve-wracking right there, but that would be a really good pickup for any wrestling promotion. A really good pickup. Look, I mean, they're out there. I mean, it just depends on what's going on, particularly with that wrestling promotion. What is it as far as their particular need? If you're asking just me straight up, based on what I've seen of all the promotions, if you're asking me straight up, Lee, what's the 2 landing spots you think Tony Nese would most thrive in? Definitely the NWA promotion, I personally feel. For sure, MLW. Not quite sure about Impact. I'm a little bit iffy on Impact right now. One of the last times I looked at Impact, I was just kind of scratching my head, just a little tiny bit, a little concerned in some areas. But MLW, NWA, those would be the ones I'm eyeballing the most. Hell, I could even see Tony Nese do some stuff with New Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm going to actually go on ahead and throw that one on the list as well. But those are the ones I'm eyeballing. So that release, if you're asking me straight up, did I find that release to be a little bit odd, a little bit, what the hell? Yeah, I think that there was a lot of potential there, and WWE honestly did not even begin to scratch the surface with that man. So kind of unfortunate what's going on there. All right, let's go with our next release, the Bollywood Boys. Where do I even begin with the Bollywood Boys? So the Bollywood Boys, Sunil Singh and Samir Singh, these guys trained with Rip Rogers, Harley Race, even Heart Dungeon. One of the brothers actually trained at the Heart Dungeon. They wrestled for TNA sponsored Ring Ka King promotion, if you guys remember when that was running around briefly. They also did some stuff for Jeff Jarrett's now defunct Global Force Wrestling. They signed with WWE back in 2016. They had a brief stint in NXT after the Cruiserweight Classic Tournament. And then pretty much from 2017 to 2019, they got paired up with Jinder Mahal. And we all remember how that had culminated in him becoming a WWE champion and everything. But remember, injury, and you kind of had a couple of false starts there with Jinder Mahal. And the Singh brothers, they pretty much have bounced around a bit. They bounced around from, Raw, Smackdown, then the 205, then the Raw. Had a little bit of a spot there at Crown Jewel, then they went back to Smackdown, but pretty much they were, towards the end there, they were mainly 205 live guys. So, I mean, it kind of sucks, what happened there with the Singh brothers. I got these guys bouncing back. I mean, for me personally, I got to give it to you guys right between the eyes. I mean, for me personally, I didn't see them as a charismatic tag team. I didn't see them as a tag team that, okay, well, maybe ultimately these guys can become tag champions. Maybe I always felt that, okay, yeah, if you're going to do some type of a stable, you're going to have some type of henchman, then yeah, this is definitely the route that you want to go. You kind of want to have these guys in your corner. And I just felt that they had served that role so perfectly when they were aligned there with Jinder Mahal. I mean, look, not for nothing, them little Singh brothers, they could fucking sell like a motherfucker. They could take a ass whooping there. So, going to be very interesting to see what the future holds for these guys. Because of their past affiliation with Ring Ka King and everything, do they maybe go back to seeing if they could do some stuff with Impact Wrestling. And if so, I could definitely see them do some really cool stuff with. I could see them do some stuff with Falabala. I could also see them do some stuff with. I think he's still there in Impact Wrestling. He was with WWE. He started off in Impact, then he went to WWE. Now he's back in Impact. I can't think of his name right now, but he's a big guy. He's a big Indian guy. Matter of fact, because that's gonna bother me until I actually look it up. So bear with me a second here, and I can actually tell you exactly who I'm talking about here. Let's look at the Impact roster, and I can tell you exactly the guy I'm thinking about. I could definitely see them do some shit with Rohit Raju. That would be pretty badass. And Mahabali Shera. He was the one that was in WWE for a hot minute, and he started off Impact, then WWE. Now he's back in Impact. Yeah. So, all right. Next up, let's keep rocking and let's keep rolling here. Our next release, Arturo Rojas. Arturo Rojas. Now, I'm not going to even put on the front. I'm not going to even lie to you guys about this one. But this man, when I was looking this guy up, I'm like, what's going on with this one? I don't even need to be long-winded with this particular talent. This guy was last seen on WWE TV going back to November of last year. He had locked horns with Cruiserweight Champion Kushida on the November 18th episode of 205 Live. Age 39. Prior to wrestling, he actually was an amateur wrestler, and he represented his country in the 2011 Pan American Games in Guadalajara, Mexico. Very respected fighter from what I was researching about this guy. This man, if I remember it right, this guy for like 17 years was a undefeated champion. I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? He mainly was wrestling on Evolve before coming to the WWE. I gotta tell you, that one kind of surprised me a little bit, just given what was going on with his background. I was a little bit surprised that maybe WWE, I'm talking about, didn't try to transition him into being a trainer of some sorts, given that decorated background that he had going on. Very, very surprised at that release. 39 years of age, great wealth of knowledge and everything. He probably knows a thing or two about booking a match and all that. That one just kind of, I understand it, but it's like, okay, you're telling me that you couldn't maybe transition him out of in-ring competition and transition him into being a coach, being a trainer. So a little bit on the fence about that one. Kurt Stallion, he's another guy who was heavily featured on 205 Live up until March. Now, he did reveal recently he had suffered a serious wrist injury and it was going to require surgery. His last bout was a tag team match. This guy debuted in 2013, been trained by Kyle O'Reilly, ACH, Michael Elgin. He's wrestled for promotions such as ROH, AAW, CZW, Alpha One, just to name a few. Guy is 30 years of age. All right, so he debuted in 2013. It's very important we home in on some of these dates of these guys and women. But in this case, like all the talents that we're talking about in ring wise, all males. We only got one female and she has nothing to do with in the ring. We'll get to her last. But Kurt Stallion, we want to home in on that. Home in on all these people that's been at it now for about 7, 8, 9, 10 years plus. These guys aren't going anywhere. I personally don't feel. Even if it's a case where these men have to pretty much, okay, I'm going back out there on the independents. I'm going to rebuild. It is what it is. And in the case of a guy like Kurt Stallion, I'm expecting him to pretty much follow suit. I don't think we've honestly seen the last of this guy. Now, sadly, and again, full transparency, full transparency. In regards to Kurt Stallion, I honestly could not comment on this guy's in-ring work. So I can't tell you whether or not I saw enough where, okay, he's pretty damn impressive. This guy should definitely, get picked up from blah, blah, blah. He should get picked up from. I can't come at you guys like that. Because, again, when you got people that are mainly 205 Live guys, I'm not watching 205 Live like I used to. A lot of people aren't watching 205 Live like they used to. So you're gonna kind of have that going on. Another 205 Live star, August Gray, age 27. He was also released by WWE. He signed to a developmental contract last August. He began his wrestling career 2011, 2012-ish. He's wrestled for Chaotic Wrestling, Lucky Pro Wrestling, Beyond Wrestling, Northeast Wrestling, Paragon Pro Wrestling, Power League Wrestling, World Extreme Wrestling, and Top Promotions, just to name a couple. This is another guy I'm talking about where you're like, again, I can't comment on what's going on with his in-ring work and all that, sadly. So a little bit at a disadvantage. Now, another guy that I can talk about that I've seen a little bit of here and there, Arya Daivari. Arya Daivari, this guy was just pure 205 Live. Pure 205 Live. Trained by his brother, Sean Daivari. And you definitely want to home in on Sean Daivari, because Sean Daivari, remember at one point, Sean Daivari was a backstage producer and all for WWE. And remember, he got let go, unfortunately, earlier this year because of, last year, if I remember right, because of what was going on with the pandemic and everything. And for those of you that's been watching the NWA product, you really want to home in on the end credits to NWA Power, because Sean Daivari's name pops up as one of the producers for Power. So as far as what the future may hold for our Arya Daivari, just saying, it could possibly be the NWA. We'll have to wait and see. But Arya Daivari, pure freaking, I tell you what, shout out to Brooklyn Sean in the chat. Hey man, if you're watching some other stuff right now, brother, you can always just come back and you can actually watch the show when it's on demand. I'm not dealing with the list of the releases in any particular order. I'm just going down the list, giving my thoughts and all that. Now, if you care particularly what I have to say about all of these releases, then you definitely want to stick around. But if you're watching something else and all that, I know some of you guys are like, acknowledge me. You're doing the Roman Reigns joint. Acknowledge me. Okay. I am seeing what you guys are saying in the chat. The thing is, though, would you guys want a 2+ hour, 3+ hour show? I don't think so. Not on a Friday night, right? So let's keep rocking and rolling and let's keep getting through this. Now, what I will do by the end of the releases, I will open up the phone lines. If you guys want to comment on any of the releases that came about, pick my brain or two on a couple of wrestling non-wrestling related questions, you guys can definitely do that. But yeah, let's continue on here and let's rock on. Now, where was I at last? Let's see what we were doing here with these releases. Yeah, Arya Daivari, as I mentioned, trained by his brother Sean Daivari, Ken Anderson, Mr. Anderson, Shelton Benjamin. So that's a pretty damn good list of trainers. That's a guy that pretty much you can't do no wrong, right? So he's wrestled for the Ring Kai King promotion, GFW, signed with the WWE in 2016. And when you look up this guy's match history, it is just pure 205. Just pure 205. So Far as him landing, I wouldn't be surprised if he were to land, like I said, in NWA, because where Sean is right now. That's another one I could also see maybe do some stuff with Impact. And again, Impact, NWA, what do they both have in common? They got the Sean Daivari connection. So kind of have that in the back of your head there. Let's see. What other releases? I'll tell you what, let's go here next. No particular order, but let's go here next. Let's go with Killian Dane. All the releases, this is one that I kind of found to be a little bit stunning. Not shocking, but I definitely would say stunning. Killian Dane, age 36, debuted in 2005, wrestled for Evolve, Insane Championship Wrestling, Revolution Pro, GFW, signed with the WWE in 2016. Remember, everything kicked off for Killian Dane with Sanity. Tearing it up there in NXT. Then they get drafted to Smackdown minus Nikki Cross. Remember that? They attacked the Usos 1 week. Then the very next week, they lost to the Usos and Hardys. Couple of more matches on the blue brand, and then they were assigned to live events. They would return a couple of months later, but they would lose again. Then you had the 2019 shakeup where Eric Young went to Raw, Alexander Wolf went to the NXT UK brand, and Sanity from that point was officially done. Dane would make his return to NXT later that year, feuding with Matt Riddle, Pete Dunne, Damian Priest, and then eventually you had the pairing of Drake Maverick. So that is a release right there that just really leaves me wondering what exactly is going on here, WWE, because Killian Dane, of all the people that were released today, besides Tony Nese, Killian Dane is another one that I say, my God, you guys had essentially, you'd have done them right. You'd essentially had your own little freaking Samoa Joe, a killer Samoa Joe on your hands. Very nerve-wracking. I remember when the team of Dane and Maverick first were put together, you're going, what quirkiness is, the curiosity got the best of you, but then the more that you watched it, you felt, okay, you know what? These guys, they're making a connection here. Okay, this might actually go somewhere. As far as individuals, teams that I felt was going to be most successful upon returning to live events, Killian Dane and Drake Maverick was definitely a team I was eyeballing. This really just kind of brings to question in mind, okay, so what really is next for Drake Maverick? There was such an outrage on social media when he was initially released. And we saw what happened with Drake doing that emotional video and everything, and just social media just in a big old uproar, coming together unanimously. And Drake Maverick was eventually re-signed. Only this happens. So now you can't just help but say, okay, so now there's no Killian Dane. So what's next here for Drake Maverick? Is Drake Maverick seriously going to be all right going forward? Or is he eventually going to be on that list and he's going to be joining Killian Dane as well? Remember one of the last story arcs that came about, Imperium was trying to do some stuff there where Alexander Wolf, because of the history that he had with Killian Dane, he was trying to get Dane to wake up, come to his senses, and get back to that monstrous behemoth that he used to be, and try to offer him a spot in Imperium. And then remember, the Imperium members, they ultimately turned on Alexander Wolf, beat the crap out of him. Wolf is now off TV, but then we will find out Wolf got released from the WWE. So you got Imperium that's continuing on. Walter kind of nowhere to be seen there, but you got those other two guys of Imperium that's continuing to represent, go on strong. You know, understand what I'm saying? It's kind of like one of the last chapters that you saw that was going on there with that whole Imperium Dane Maverick saga, and then it seemed as though they kind of got away from that within recent weeks. They tried to put more space between those respected parties in that storyline. So, you know, on side note, I personally feel for Killian because again, there was a lot of potential with him, untapped. That was untapped. And then I also can't help but think about his wife, Nikki Cross. And I think that's that's going to be interesting to see what happens once WWE goes back on the road and what exactly that is going to mean for couples that got together primarily because of what was going on with the pandemic, and it was forcing people to pretty much operate out of one main major city. You know, basically everybody was reporting to the same compound. Basically, it's going to be interesting to see. Okay, now that we're going back out there on the road, will these relationships truly be able to function as strong as it was before going back live on tour? That's going to be a really huge testament, because long distance relationships, even if you have both parties that fully commit to those long distance relationships, just trying to figure out the schedule, making time for each other and all that, it can be very, very challenging. Look, not for nothing, I know there was a brief period there where I was trying to get into the pro wrestling business, so I can't relate to what these men and women go through when they're traveling city to city and all that. But I do know what it's like to try to have a long distance relationship with somebody in another state, and you're trying to move heaven and earth to make time to be with them. And, you know, it can get pretty frustrating. It can get pretty frustrating. So I'm really pulling for them though. I really am, because they seem like a really nice, cute couple and everything. And if there's anybody you really are hoping that, okay, really rooting you on there, it's definitely that couple. And Killian Dane, he did put out a little bit of a statement that's out there. Pretty much, he's got a chip on his shoulders and he's looking to get back out there. He realized he's still a relatively young man. Most of these people are under 90-day clauses. Killian Dane definitely being one of them, as he pretty much ended his lengthy statement after thanking Triple H, William Regal, and a few others. See you guys in 90 days. So, going to be interesting to see where he lands. Me personally, that's another one. You could either do Impact. Much as I would like to see him in New Japan, I just don't think that's gonna be happening. I can see ROH. I can see MLW. And you gotta start putting MLW in a lot more of the conversation, because they're ironing out a deal. Rumblings has it they're gonna be possibly inking a deal with Discovery Communications. We'll see how that pans out. But in the meantime, looks like all of their shows on YouTube at some point, it's going to stop and possibly be pulled from YouTube as part of this new TV deal that they're working on. Because remember, originally, MLW inked a deal with DAZN Sports. But for whatever respected reason, that deal has now collapsed. So I can't wait to see what's going to be happening with Nikki Cross in the coming weeks, man, because, you know, she's now doing this whole superhero gimmick thing. For those of you that maybe missed it, there you go right there. Apologize for those of you that's only checking out the audio version of this show, but right now I'm showing Nikki Cross in her new superhero costume and everything. Wasn't even 24 hours after this new look of hers debuted, and you've already got people doing sketches, paintings, drawings. I mean, it's already over like a mofo. So that's a joint right there where, and I gave Nikki Cross a lot of props for pretty much taking chicken shit and making the best out of it. Look, that type of reaction in less than 24 hours, if that's a taste of things to come for the live events, for the little ones and all that, WWE may have hit another golden mine right there. We'll have to wait and see how things, as far as the merchandise sales numbers and all that, how that all adds up and everything. But of all the people that was released, best is yet to come for my man Killian Dane, without a shadow of doubt. All right, let's go to our next release here, and now we are going to be talking about Tyler Breeze. We can also talk about Fandango as well, so we can pretty much knock out two birds with one stone, and we could talk about Breezango. So let's start with Tyler Breeze. Tyler Breeze, both of these guys were released by WWE, by the way. Very surprising right here. So Tyler Breeze, been with the WWE, God, since 2010. Began his wrestling career in 2006. Was on the independents for about 4 years before being signed to WWE in 2010. Remember, Tyler Breeze goes back to the FCW days, Florida Championship Wrestling, way before the transition to NXT. To the point, he was even a FCW heavyweight champion. Great feud he had going on with Leo Kruger, Adam Rose. Then 2012, 2015, he was down there in NXT. But remember, it was in 2013, and you guys probably remember that documentary that had came out about what it takes to be a WWE superstar, if you all recall that. And they had homed in of the talents. They homed in on Tyler Breeze, and he pretty much was at that chopping block, if you guys recall, where it was starting to seem, okay, fans aren't connecting to you, and you are pretty much on thin ice right here. You need to come up with something or risk being on the chopping block. And that's when he went into that whole prima donna, selfie stick, and all that other good stuff. And pretty much the rest was history, as they say. By 2016, he was on the main roster, but went on a winless streak of over 20 televised matches on Raw. Disappeared for a bit, then appeared on Smackdown, had that brief alliance with R-Truth, eventually feuded with Goldust and Fandango, and somehow from that spawned Breezango. Breezango becoming one of the highlights of SmackDown, especially with their fashion fouls segment, before being pulled eventually to reappear in NXT. Breezango, in recent memory, defeated Imperium to win the NXT tag titles. This marked Tyler Breeze's first title win in WWE. And then on the October 21st episode of NXT from last year, Breezango lost the titles to Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan, ending their title reign of just shy of 60 days. Fandango signed a developmental contract in 2006, featured in various brands during his tenure with the company. 2016. Since 2016. Fandango. You know, for me, I know I had mentioned Edge and Christian earlier. But if there was ever a tag team that truly captured that quirkiness and great comedic timing at its finest, that reminded you a lot of Edge and Christian, for sure, hands down, Breezango did. It was actually a really good tag team. You know, not for nothing, I still remember the brief period of time there where Breezango was a thing for a hot minute. Had the whole little music thing going on Raw, and had Summer Rae, and you know, it's hard to believe that at one point that is what had all the fans just freaking hooping and hollering and all that shit. Pop culture phenomenon, as his little dancing and all that stuff, you know, it fucking transcended to other entertainment genres and all that. So Just crazy. And if I remember it right, I don't think it was The Rock, but there were some people over the years that came into the WWE, maybe Taker being one of them, but you had some guys over the years when they were ready to, okay, I'm ready to get back in the ring, what's up? If they weren't going to Curtis Axel, they were going to Breezango or Tyler Breeze, and they pretty much were helping them out, getting them ready in ring wise. So you would have thought that for as long as those guys have been involved in the WWE, that for sure, maybe they ultimately would transition to producers behind the scenes and all that. So that right there is just, look, not for nothing, but if I'm Tyler Breeze or Breezango, or correction, Fandango, I'm keeping Breezango together. Try saying that 10 times fast. If I'm Tyler Breeze or Fandango, I'm trying to keep Breezango. Right. But you feel where I'm coming from? If you're Tyler Breeze or if you're Fandango, you want to keep what you got going on. You want to be booked as a unit. Straight up. You want to be booked as a unit. Any shoot interviews, any conventions, all of that, you want to be booked as a unit. That's how you want to do it. That is how you want to fucking do it. Make that money as a cohesive unit, not separate. If a motherfucker is insisting on it being separate, I think you just got to be like, sorry, tough shit. You need to pull a Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, essentially. That's how you need to fucking do it. So, a little heartbroken at that one. A little heartbroken at that one. Because anytime I got to see them on my TV, legit, I would always have a smile. I would always have a smile. No bullshit. I would always have a smile. All right, so who does that leave us with? I'm just going over the list here, seeing who does that. Yeah, so now at this point, we got two more names we can go over. One is another wrestler, while the other one is not a wrestler. Marina Shafir, Roderick Strong's wife. Gotta tell you, man, this one for me, you talk about fucked up. You talk about fucked up. Marina Shafir, in 2018, she reported to the Performance Center. And then remember from there, you had the all-women's Evolution pay-per-view where she, Jasmine Duke, made their WWE debuts as heels. They interfered in Shayna Baszler's match for the NXT Women's Championship, helping ultimately Shayna retain the title over Kairi Sane. Follow that up with NXT War Games, NXT TV debut, where Jasmine Duke, Marina Shafir had a tag match against Io Shirai and Dakota Kai. Fast forward a little bit more, go to TakeOver Phoenix. Shafir and Duke, once again, helping Baszler retain her title, this time over Bianca Belair. Go to late 2019, Duke and Shafir had a match against Dakota Kai and Tegan Nox. Shafir would then be off TV for a little bit. She ultimately would return, though, to WWE TV, reuniting with Baszler and Duke, even winning a Raw Underground match. And that pretty much was it. Now, we saw a little bit of a brief cameo of her on NXT programming when it came to the next chapter for Roderick Strong's career and everything. And he disappeared for a couple of months, and we saw what went down on NXT this week as far as Diamond Mine goes. He's pretty much the guy that's behind it. They dropped the ball with Marina Shafir. They did. Because you look at her MMA background, and look, granted, you could make the argument, well, Lee, not for nothing, but it's been a minute now since she's been involved in MMA. It's been a good minute now. Because if I'm not mistaken, I believe maybe 2014, 15. That's how long it's been since she's last had an MMA match. A lot has happened during that time frame. She got engaged, ultimately got married, has a child now with Roderick Strong. So, hey, as far as maybe potentially getting back inside the octagon or whatever, or being just a straight up female boxer, maybe that's on hold for a little bit. But taking all of those elements and putting her in the best position where she could succeed as a WWE superstar, my perspective from a distance, I feel she never really did get that opportunity to shine. And where things really had went wrong, I personally feel, when you had Marina Shafir, Jasmine Duke, Shayna Baszler, that should have never ever been broken up. Those girls should have always remained together. From the moment that Shayna Baszler went up to the main roster, those girls should have been right there by her side, and they should have been causing fucking havoc left and right. And if that ultimately meant they had to go through teams such as Ruby Riott, so be it. If it ultimately meant that they had to go through, figure out whatever other female combination teams that you wanted to do to try to have those girls, they would just run roughshod. If it meant that that trio of NXT girls was going to have their way with the Sasha Banks, the Baileys, the Charlotte Flairs, then so be it. But you definitely needed to go in strong, and that essentially is how you would build up the other girls at the same time. And honestly, kind of do them somewhat similar, same formula if you think about it. Do them like the Shield formula. Yeah, eventually, look, we can all be in agreement. It kind of sucked that the Shield got broken up eventually, because a lot of us felt as though there was a lot more of a lifespan in it. But we also, as fans, realized, you know what? Yeah, we could do something with these guys individually. But the way it all panned out is kind of funny, because a lot of us, everybody's list is different, but I know my list, when I was looking at the guys in the Shield, as far as who I thought was going to really fucking break out, my number one is so funny when I think about this too. My number one was, oh God, it's been so long, but let me think about this. My number one was Roman Reigns. My number two was Dean Ambrose. Seth Rollins, I really was not sure about. I had serious concerns that Seth Rollins would not. And to see how it panned out, awesome is all I have to say. But take the Shield formula and apply that to those three women. And eventually, once you've built them up enough, then you go on ahead and separate them. Or maybe you have, one that just goes solo and two remain a tag team. Just imagine how different it would be. And not for nothing, but even in these last couple of months, you could have easily took Marina Shafir. That is, if she wanted to continue having a wrestling career, you could have easily taken her and you could have paired her up with Shayna Baszler. And you had the perfect storyline on the silver platter. Shayna Baszler could have just been so frustrated of what was going on with Nia Jax and her infatuation with Reginald, that she's like, you know what, fuck this. I've been messing around so long with girls like Nia Jax, not really focusing on the real prize. And it actually took a phone call from one of my sisters to put me back on track. And you know what, going forward, you're going to see a Shayna Baszler that's going to be going back to basics, snapping bitches. Snapping bitches, tapping bitches. There's your new t-shirt, Shayna Baszler, right? And you could have somehow incorporated Marina Shafir in that. So, no shit that we're probably going to have dirt sheets and all that that's going to be like, oh, there were plans for, first of all, I'll believe that a lot more once I hear it from the horse's mouth. But you shouldn't need for sites to say, we as fans can just easily, okay, well, here's some stuff that you could definitely do with her. That is, if she's still interested in pursuing a wrestling career, here's some shit that you can do with her. We'd be here all night just going over the different scenarios that could have possibly been done for Marina Shafir. The point is, this is a talent that never, for whatever respected reason, and I would like to know more, and again, from the horse's mouth, what was she being told? Was she told, hey, we don't think you're really, you're really checking off the personality box. We think you're really lacking in that department. And as a result, this is why you're kind of being held back a little bit. Yeah, I want to know exactly what it was she was being told, and why it kind of seemed as though she was just at a standstill there, in purgatory there in WWE, because it's kind of nerve wracking. I mean, just okay, you had a baby and all that. Okay, I got that, but besides that, what was going on? So that should be a very, whenever she's ready to talk about her time in the WWE, I think of all the people that is going to be able to give some really good insight, that's going to be one I'm really looking forward to, because not for nothing, but of the three, between Jasmine Duke, Marina Shafir, Shayna Baszler, in Shayna Baszler's own little way, she's got a bit of cuteness to her, but Shafir is just absolute, very photogenic, very photogenic. So a little bit surprised at that one. And one last release that we can talk about here. One last release that we can talk about. This one is not wrestling related, but I do want to talk about this one. So this one, Kenice Mobley. Kenice Mobley, who was a WWE writer. She got released earlier today, by all accounts. And it's very unfortunate with regards to her, because I tell you what, seeing people that were leaving the comments of she deserves to be fired, I'm happy that she lost her job. You know what? You can eat a dick, as far as I'm concerned. I don't wish ill will on anybody, not even my worst enemy. I got people out there that are not a fan of my show, not a fan of my product. That's fine. There's like a gazillion other shows that you can go check out for on demand and on the downloads. But no matter what, the people that I may not get along with, I don't wish them any ill will. If anything, I wish for them and their family nothing but the very best. I want for them to continue to be blessed. I want for them to continue to be fruitful in their lives, and in any future cool things that's going to be happening to them. I want nothing but the very best. So to see some of the comments that were coming out earlier today for Kenice Mobley, people salivating over the fact that she was fired. Seriously, grow up. Look yourself in the mirror and fucking grow up. Now, at the same time, what was going on with the social media storm involving her comments about the company's hiring practices? Crazy. Just crazy. All right, so if you didn't hear about this by now, Mobley, who, was a writer for the Jimmy Fallon show, when you look up her IMDb profile, God, I mean, she's all over the place, man. She is all over the place. A lot of this stuff I do not recognize, sadly. The only thing I recognize is just Jimmy Fallon. I also recognize that she was one of the writer's assistants for the 2020 BET Awards. But other than that, I mean, she's got some writer credits, she's got producer credits, all that good stuff. Okay? Now look, pretty much everybody that is a knowledgeable fan tries to do their best to learn a little bit of stuff behind the scenes because they're curious. Know that a lot of the hires that's come about within WWE over the years, they're tapping into people that don't have any previous background as far as working with TNA or working with a lot of these people, writers or producers from The Walking Dead, or writers and producers, just hypothetically speaking, from The Oprah Show or The Surreal Life. You get the gist, okay? So Kenice Mobley gets a job as a WWE writer. She goes on this podcast talking about how she was assigned to Raw. She confessed to being unfamiliar with the stars on that brand. She referred to the current WWE champion Bobby Lashley as Bobby Ashley. And yeah, direct quote, they did not require me to know anything about wrestling, but I do have a background in film production and comedy writing. And they're like, perfect, come on in. So I am on the Monday Night Raw team. So there's Monday Night Raw and Friday Night Smackdown. And the people I know that they are on it are Bobby. His last name is either Bobby Ashley or Bobby Lashley. And I really should know that. He's like this giant black guy. And he and the people who are part of his crew, I know that they call, or at least as of last year, they called themselves the Hurt Business. The Hurt Business. They wear suits and they're like, we're cool. Yeah, those kind of comments. Now, look, I appreciate Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful. You know, he put the release out there and then he tried to go back and say from his respected sources, it had nothing to do with the interview. A lot of people were saying, come on, dude, don't be like that. Come on, that's bullshit. And he's trying to stay firm on that comment. But, you know, let's not also forget that sometimes Sean Ross, he's got a good relationship with WWE. Okay? Sometimes he's able to get some nice little nuggets of news and all that. Meanwhile, you got Dave Meltzer from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. And let me bring myself up here so you guys can see me again. There we go. And you got Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer, according to his respected sources, you know, and I trust Uncle Dave a little bit more here. You know, even though sometimes he'll just, you can tell when he doesn't know something, but I trust him on this one. As a person with close knowledge of the situation, revealed that the reaction to Mobley's statements has been negative, very negative behind the scenes. However, it was stated that she is not the only one in this situation, as other writers are also facing similar issues. No shit. I mean, by now, unless you've been under a rock, WWE has always hired writers that essentially has no past affiliation with writing or producing for a wrestling show or product. So Meltzer continued on, and I quote, "This turned into a fairly big thing, heavily talked about on social media, but also noted among those on the inside. Mobley was also under the gun for speaking publicly on the subjects that WWE does not want stuff talked about." And again, one person very close to the situation noted the negative reaction to this and said that she is not the only one in this situation, and actually this is the typical of many of the writers. But where they were embarrassed by this is that by going public, it makes WWE to the outside world look blindly stupid. Gee, you think? I mean, look, not to burst a few people's bubbles, because again, we got to make sure that we educate some of you guys here. But I will have you know, and I don't know if I can actually find it here. I don't know if I can actually find it here right now. Bear with me a second here, and I'll see if I can pull it up. I cannot. Hang on. Yeah, I don't have it anymore, but somebody had posted, and I've seen it off and on over the years when WWE had hiring spots available and they were looking for, you name it, There was one that's posted on social media earlier today that's picking up a lot of traction. And I've seen that off and on over the years. It's for WWE writers. And it pretty much says in black and white, hey, no past wrestling experience, needed. So basically, if you've never written for a wrestling promotion before, you've never produced for a wrestling promotion before, that's okay. If you don't have knowledge about the wrestling product, that's okay as well. It's preferred, it's a bonus, but it's not mandatory. So the fact that Kenice Mobley pretty much fit all of those check marks. Look, when you go and you look at her resume for IMDb and everything, I mean, some of you guys may legitimately say, okay, sure, what the hell, let's see what happens. But there's a big difference here. And if you're asking me my 2 cents from a distance, I kind of feel as though the first question that I have that comes to my mind that nobody else seems to be asking. Everybody is reacting the way that they're reacting, and that's great, right? It's great dialogue. But here's the real question that we all need to be asking ourselves, and I hope that my colleagues will join me in bringing up this very valid question. Number one, was WWE aware of this interview? Anytime you try to get an interview with anybody that is associated with WWE, you've got to get a permission slip. You've got to get a permission slip. So, let's say I'm interested in interviewing Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins may say, sure, man, I would love to do your freaking show. Without a shadow of doubt, I would love to do your show. But we got to make sure that WWE is on board and it's okay that I come do your show. So reach out through WWE, talk to the talent relations people, and let's see what happens. And then at that point, the talent relations or whatever, they got to pretty much decide whether or not, the media department and all that, they got to pretty much decide whether or not, okay, based on the information that's currently out there about that podcast or about that syndicated show, okay, yeah, we think you'll be in good hands. Go on ahead, do that show. So the first question that I have that comes to my mind right now, this podcast that Kenice Mobley went on, did she have the green light by WWE to do this podcast? That's the first question. If not, even if you were to say to me, oh, well, Kenice Mobley, she's friends with these guys. She's known them for a long time, and she just thought that this would be a nice little harmless conversation, blah this, blah that. Then the question still becomes, okay, she said she had, per what she said in the interview, she had just got hired by WWE. All right, so you now got the job and everything, okay? At that point, you now got to priority number one. Before you start granting interviews and all that left and right, you got to make sure you get off on the right foot and you educate yourself on the do's and don't while you're on WWE's payroll. Now, to each its own. But for me personally, whenever I've started a new job, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I've started a new job, I don't just go all balls deep without a fucking net, without first educating myself on the do's and don'ts. Okay, because I'm trying to make sure I keep my job until I'm ready to leave. Not you're out because you ain't do XYZ correctly of your job. Okay? So those are the questions that we really need to be asking ourselves right now. Was the WWE green light this interview? If WWE did not green light this interview, then, you feel where I'm coming from? And then number two, if the interview was not green lighted by WWE, did she ever reach back out to WWE and let them know, hey, I did this interview with these guys over at this podcast? Just FYI, nothing salacious came about, but we did bring up, me being hired and everything. Okay, so that's the second question you got to ask after did WWE greenlight her appearance on this show? If they did not greenlight the appearance on the show, then did she at least reach out to WWE and say, hey, I did this interview. I did ask for a transcript. Here's what was said. FYI. And just 2 cents from a distance, I don't feel any of those situations had occurred. I just don't. I think that she went into this. I truly believe that Kenice did not have any malice in her heart. I don't. I believe she honestly was just trying to share her experience, just being hired by the WWE, just how laid back they were as far as their requirements and all. But ultimately, she became a casualty of it, and she became a casualty of her own words, because even if you don't mean to come off nonchalant, uneducated about what it is you're getting ready to embark on, even if there's no malice behind it. Social media, on the other hand, and what we saw earlier today was really about social media coming together, those that were good intended, coming together and saying, nah, man, come on, if you're going to be somebody that doesn't know anything about the wrestling product, you've never watched a wrestling show in your life, okay, that's fine. But from the moment that you're getting hired, you're telling us that you can't start getting familiar with what you're going to be writing for and have some of these people's names down and all that. Start looking up footage, start looking up past episodes for these guys. And you're telling us you can't do that, that you got to go into an interview coming off so uneducated, coming off so not remotely interested in what you're being paid to cover, what you're being paid to write for. I think the latter is the bigger issues that a majority of the fans had. If it would have been an interview where she went on there, yeah, so I saw that WWE was hiring and I didn't really think anything of it at the time, but then a friend had said to me, hey, you should go on ahead and apply for that WWE job. Look at your resume for writing this, for writing that. Hell, did your part there with Jimmy Fallon. That alone should definitely get you in through the door. And I went on ahead, I filled it out, and WWE reached out to me. Next thing I know, bam, I'm hired. So yeah, I'm actually one of the writers for WWE Raw. I am very excited to be covering the Raw product and everything. I see that this show has been around for a few decades now, one of the longest reigning shows. It's right up there with The Simpsons. Were you guys aware of that? Yeah, I mean, so the fact that this show has been going on for so long, it's pretty cool. And if the question is brought up now, are you a wrestling fan? I got to be honest with you guys. As a kid, I remember watching a little bit of wrestling here and there, but not enough to the point that I was an avid watcher, that I was a fan of it. So going into this, I really had to do my part in catching up on the last 2 to 3 months worth of episodes, because I want to make sure that I get off on the right foot. I want to make sure that I get off all steams running. I want to try to do my part to help make the Raw flagship show one of the best shows that's out there. So yeah, I've been researching last couple of months. I like what's going on with this guy they got. That's the current WWE champion, Bobby Lashley. I mean, this guy looks the part. Have you seen this guy? This guy is huge. This guy is huge, and apparently he used to be with the Hurt Business. Apparently, a lot of fans really were into the Hurt Business there. I'm not really sure why that was broken up and everything, but yeah, there's a couple of characters that I'm eyeballing right now. I'm looking really forward to sitting down and writing some really good stuff for them because I got a really cool bunch of ideas in my head that I think the fans will really enjoy. Because when you think about it and you look at these wrestling characters, they are these larger than life superheroes that are able to perform these cool things that you and I can't do on a daily basis. That's how you come off educated. That is how you come off, hey, even though I don't know about, I'm showing the willingness to learn. How many of us have not been in that position where we're interested in moving up in a company and, okay, you want to apply for this position? Okay, well, in order to apply for this position, you got to learn blah, 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 blah first. Are you willing to learn these things first before you're even considered? Or are you willing to learn these things in the process of being in this new position here? So you gotta show that. And the fact that unintentionally she made a lot of what she was saying just come off nonchalant, I kind of don't care, even though she didn't say it. And I think she meant well, but it's the way with words and it's the interpretation. It's that first impression. It's that first impression. And I'm sorry, but man, heaven forbid you make a bad first impression. When you make a bad first impression, it is really hard to win people back over. Perfect scenario. Good segue. It's a perfect scenario. At my wedding, for example, we had one person that was intoxicated. Somebody on the wifey side of the friends and family, but this was a friend. And she shows up to the wedding intoxicated. I mean, I'm the first one that's pretty much there and everything before the ceremony. And I got this girl all up in my face, hot breath. I can smell the booze. This girl damn near was ready to put her arms around me. I mean, she came up to me. Who are you? And it's like, oh shit. Okay. I'm like, and I'm first thing that's in my head, I'm going, who is this drunk motherfucker? And once I found out who she was, I'm thinking to myself, oh Lord have mercy. Is this woman even going to make it through the wedding? And I just remember feeling so, I really, you guys have no idea. I really wanted to say to the minister and a couple other people, can we get her in a car and maybe go sleep that off at the hotel? Because I don't think she's going to make it. Way too, yeah. To the point when it came to having cake, champagne, and drinks at the back at the condo for a little reception gathering. She didn't make it. She just pretty much went, and I was happy with that because she was so. But the main point, that first impression, I told my girl, Tabs will tell you. Don't invite her to any more. No, hell no. You can tell me she's a nice person. You can tell me she donates $20 a week to the Boys and Girls Club or whatever. That first impression with me, that was just... So first impressions mean so much. And I think that based on what the fans... And look, granted, you even had some people, including myself, go out of the way, try to read as much of the whole transcript of this show as possible. Listen to the audio, and it's like... And it's the optics. It's all about the optics. So it sucks that this girl got released and everything and the stigma that's now in the air. But I mean, look, you can't really feel too sorry for her because with all of what I'm seeing of her on IMDb, she's gonna be all right. She's gonna be all right. But people that were wishing, fuck this bitch and Yeah, she's fired. All right. People actually giving each other air high fives on social media because a person that, man, get your priorities straight. Seriously. Get your priorities straight. Some of you guys weren't even working during the fucking pandemic. Seriously, some of you people were not even, and you got the nerve to try to be all high and mighty. Like, if you're gonna look at the optics and you're gonna break it down the way I just broke it down, I got mad respect for you. But wishing somebody's demise and all that other, I ain't got time for that. Sorry, you can miss me with that. If I lost you as a listener, I don't care. That means you never come back. I'm trust me, I'm good. I'm good because I ain't got time for that type of juvenile silliness. But yeah, so that's all the releases that had came about from WWE, man. That's all the releases that had came about. Let's see what's going on here. All right, I'm just making my rounds one more time on social media here. And while I'm doing that, please, if you guys did not cast your vote on that latest poll, go cast your vote. YouTube.com/the RCWR show. Go click on the communities tab. I got a poll. It's right up under my rest in peace, Melissa Coates. You'll see the poll that's talking about the phone line. So make sure you go cast your vote on that. Greatly would appreciate it. And like I said, we'll see where things are as we get ready to go into Wednesday. If we can at least double the amount of votes that I'm seeing right now by Wednesday, I'll call it done. Otherwise, at the latest, we'll extend it to Friday, and then I'll definitely call it DONE. Programming notes. I know AEW is going to be coming on Saturday. I'm actually going to be working Sunday, and I'm also going to be working on some studying because I got final exams that's going to be coming up for the next 2 weeks for some of my classes. So I'm not going to be doing a show on Saturday. We will talk about AEW Dynamite on Monday's RCWR show and any other little trinkets of news that we can get into. It's so interesting because originally what I had intended for this show, I was going to be talking about Smackdown. And, I'm supposed to be talking about some stuff with AEW. But once again, it got pushed back. And it's like, at this point, it's kind of like, maybe I should just leave that thing alone that I was trying to bring up about AEW and just move along. But we'll see what happens going into Monday's show. Hey, once again, man, appreciate those of you that had tuned in live, checked out the show. Please, man, as you guys get ready to make your exit, please make sure you haven't done so already. Please kindly hit the like, especially if you made it to this part of the video. Hit that like. Lets the YouTube algorithm team know you had a solid time, checking out the content here in this episode. Helps them push it out, recommend it more for others to check out. Let's try to see if we can, you do your part. I'm doing my part, bring you the content. Do your part by hitting that like button. That spreads the awareness of our content more. It pushes it out more to people to be able to discover with ease. So do that and definitely appreciate that in advance. And you can definitely get at me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Use the keywords, the RCWR show. Please leave your comments below. I want to know what you made of the news of some of these latest releases. Do you see some of these people that's going to be bouncing back? Any of these releases jump out to you particularly that you're a little bit stunned, a little bit taken back by? Sound off. I want to know what you guys think. Where are some of these promotions you like to see some of these people end up? I promise that if you write a rather lengthy post, I will read every single thing that you gotta say, and I will do my best to respond to it accordingly. I definitely promise you that. Get at me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Use the keywords, the RCWR show. Shout out to those of you that had tuned in live, checking out this show. Shout out to those of you that's going to be checking this out for on demand. You're going to be waiting for the audio on the downloads. Give me about 45 minutes to an hour, and clean it up and all that, and I'll have it available wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Meantime, I hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Get out there, enjoy the weather. Hopefully you're able to, unless you have other plans. And I will see you right back here Monday night after Raw goes off the air. Going to be going a little bit all over the place on that show. You know how we do it. So until then, please be safe. Most importantly, be kind to one another. And I will see you guys next go around. Y'all take care. Adios. By the way, check out Spawn Universe #1. Spawn Universe #1. It just came out Wednesday. It's a new series by Todd McFarlane. It's going to be a monthly joint. So you guys that's big into Spawn, check that out. I just grabbed the #1 issue earlier today. I read the first couple of pages. I'm pretty into it so far. It's about 64 pages, $5.99. You can't beat that. You can't beat that. $6, 64 pages. Check it out. Good shit. Peace, y'all. Take care.